In this lesson, we're going to learn about CSS. So, what is CSS? Well, CSS is Cascading Style Sheet. One thing that I can tell you is that this is the first time and probably last time that you will be pronouncing this name here, because everybody just knows CSS as what it is, CSS. Okay, so you just don't go there and say, oh, I know cascading style sheets, because people will be looking at you like, okay. Anyway, so yes, so what is CSS? CSS stands for, cascading style sheet, and it controls the layout of many web pages. When I say the layout, I mean everything, just like how everything is like the position of every layout, or even the colors and the font and everything else. We're going to talk about that right now. And also, it's specified the document style. So, HTML versus CSS. In HTML, we only have plain text. Like everything we see there is just black and white. White background with black text. That's all we see. And of course, using HTML, it will give you like the structural layer, just to know where every little things go. For example, the head tag, the body tag, the footer, and everything else. On the other hand, CSS. When you combine CSS with the HTML, it gives you more of fresh look, okay? It will give you more style, it will give you color and more. So the big question is, before we get into this question on how to add CSS to your website, I want to show you how important is CSS for every website. Here we are in most of the most famous website for developers right now, at least in 2020, which is Stack Overflow. This website is like the Google for developers. Okay, look how nice and cool this website look like, just because it has CSS and JavaScript. So when we talking about web development, we talk about three things, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You already know HTML by this time. So CSS, we're going to talk about this now, and then we will be talking about JavaScript. So now imagine if I go ahead and remove the CSS of this page. How do you think it will look like? Remember that I mentioned that without CSS, everything looked like black and white. Yes, maybe if you have some links, it's probably gonna look like blue somewhere, but no more than that. So there are two ways to remove the CSS from this website. One way is by just right click on the inspect element. Once you click on the inspect element, we can remove the head tag here, which is adding every CSS. I mean, most of the time. So if I go ahead and just click there and delete element, there's no CSS on the website. So this is how the website look like. Remember that I mentioned that probably gonna look like black and white, and probably a little bit of blue just because the links. There you go. So this is how it look like without CSS. If I go here and just refresh the page, another way to remove the CSS is by using a plugin extension, which is basically almost like a plugin. We're gonna talk about that later, but yes, an extension that you can just remove the CSS and you can activate it and everything is gone. So there's no CSS right now in this page. Okay, so how do we add CSS to your website? So there are three ways to add CSS to your website. The first one is inline. The second one is internal. And the last one is external. Depending on your need and depending on what you are trying to do in your website, probably one is better than the other, but you will see. So let's get into it. Inline style. So the good thing about this is that it will help you to style like a specific HTML tag. For example, if you have like a p tag and you want that specific p tag to become red, CSS, the inline style, will definitely help you to just add that red on that specific tag without affecting other p tags. So let's take a look at it. Just gonna go ahead and create a new, where is my subline? Okay, my subline view disappeared. Not sure why, but yes, it's not there anymore. All right, so let's just create a file and let's just create a website, which is HTML, closing the tag, just put in the head tag, which is, we're definitely going to need this in this exercise. I mean, not right now for the inline, but you will see why do we need this. And then we have the body tag. And I'm just going ahead and save this file. I'm just gonna call it index.html. Okay, so it should be here right now. And let's go ahead and just type a head tag. Well, not a head tag, I'm sorry, a heading. Let's say hello. Then just add another p tag and say hi. And then add another h1 and same, I don't know, bye, I guess. And then another p tag and say hi. Well, not hi, but you know what I meant. Let's close this p tag. I'm just going to save this file. I will double click on it and voila, this is what we have so far. So let's going back to this document, and we are saying here that if we, will help us to specify a specific style rules for specific elements. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at how we do this thing. We're gonna use what we call the style attribute to accomplish this. Okay, so let's go ahead and add it. So let's say that I want to add some style to this tag here to become red. Just gonna go ahead and save and there you go. So now this p tag, to be more specific, is become red. So let me go ahead now and just make this one blue. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and give the color and say which is blue. Don't worry about what this means here. Of course, we know it's the color, but we're gonna get into this part and then we're gonna get into this. Okay, so let's just say that when you refresh this becomes blue. So now we have blue. So let's go back to the file. So now we have this thing that it says that we can add as many property and value as you want. Okay, so what does that mean when I say property and value? For that, we need to come here and take a look to this. Don't worry about the selector for now, but we're gonna use this in the other ones. Okay, so right now for the declaration of CSS, you need two things. You need a property and you need the value. Property here in this case is the font size. In the last case where we were adding the code right now, the property will be the color and the value will be the blue. So all this combined, it becomes a declaration. So in other words, it's like you need to declare the property and value of the CSS so you can just specify and apply those rules to the selector. Okay, in this sample, we're giving these declarations to the pig tag. So let's go back to the example. Go ahead. Okay. So as you can see, we can add as many property and value as we want. So let's add this one as well. Just make sure to finish your statement or your property and value with a semicolon. In that way, it's like adding a comma to the to each one, so you can it can be more specific that you're trying to use 2 instead of 1. So I'm just gonna go ahead. You know what? Let me just make this bigger. I'm using the property font size, and I'm using the value 52 pixel. So now I'm just click save, and look how big it is. Okay. Another way to see if it works, you can just right click, click on inspect, and you will see that it's saying the font size is 52. And of course, if you want to play a little bit more with it, you can just come here and keep increasing this number here, and it will show you how it will look like in 93 or 100, or who knows, probably 1,000 times. Where did it go? Let me see. Oh, there you go. So you can even try this. Okay. And of course, because we're using the spec elements, it will not be saved. Okay. So let's go back to it. Here I'm saying this is not a good practice for many reasons. Okay. The first reason this is not a good practice is because if you have 100 p tag, okay, well, I'm gonna make it easy for you. If you have 100 headings and you're using the same headings and the same style of each headings for every paragraph or whatever you're trying to display those headings, then you might have to go ahead and use this this style rule to each heading. For example, if I have this heading here, H1, if I have another one here, and I say word, then I have to add it as well here. So why this is not good? If I come here, I click save, and then I say, well, I don't like blue, I like green. So what's going to happen is that now I have to go back to it and change the color blue to green. But I have to do it everywhere. Okay? And this is not a good practice. So now we're here again. Then I have to do this. Okay? Again, yes, we only have 3 H1 now, but imagine if you will have 100. That would not be fun, trying to change everything to this color. So let's go back and let's see what's the second way to add CSS. The other way to add CSS is using the internal CSS. Okay, this method basically apply the style on a specific HTML page, not only the tag but also within the page. Okay, every property and value should be between the style element. So you haven't seen this yet, but this is when we're going to be starting using this. So where do we add this thing? Remember that I mentioned that we definitely going to be using this part here. So this is the time. Now we have the heading and we were using the style element. Okay. And now remember that I mentioned about the selector, this one right here. So now we're gonna use this. Okay, so let's go back to the file, and here I'm just going ahead and put the selector H1. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just copy this and this here, only the color and the font size, and just add it here. You are allowed to just press enter and that will break the line. It's okay to do that. And I will delete all this thing here, and also this one here, and finally this one here. And of course I'm just gonna go ahead and click save. So it's nothing in there, as you can see. Each H1 is literally empty, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just press enter, and there you go. Now we have all this. See, H1, okay, this one is not working because I still left the quotation mark there. Okay, there you go. So now we have all these three using only this line for code. Okay, using only this part here, we literally did what we have within three things. And now the good thing about this one is that if you probably want to change the color from green to blue, it's gonna be easy, because now you just can do it here in one place and just click save, and there you go. It will change everywhere, just pointing the selector. Okay, this one only works within a page. So for example, if you create like a complete website and you want to change H1 at every page, this one will not work, just because this HTML code here will work only at index.html. Okay, so what about the p tag? Same thing. If we have the p tag here and we want to make this color red, okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this. Just click save, and there you go. Both of them become red. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the last one, CSS. So what is this external CSS means? Well, it's a file that contains all CSS rules. So this file is just not a regular file, that just like the one that we have that has that HTML at the end. This one has that CSS at the end instead of that HTML or that JS or that PHP, which is another type of file that we're going to talk about that later. Okay. So in this case, the external CSS, you implement in a different way. Okay. So before we doing that, before we doing this, I would just want to let you know that in external CSS, it's very convenient because you can apply this file to many pages on the website. Like for example, the one that we just did, the internal CSS, and of course the inline style also as well, only allow you to style one page. For example, in this case, it will be the index.html. So the external CSS is much better because you just create a new file, you just put that rule, every CSS rule there, and then you just go back and you can reuse it. Well, not reuse it, but like implement this link on the head tag, and then it will be saying like loading every CSS on that page. Okay, so let's try. Let's go ahead, and here for this one I do not need this style tag anymore. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and paste this link tag. So now we have a new tag, which is the link tag here. Okay, so this link tag contain this, and this. Okay, so what are these things? The REL, it means it describes the relationship between the HTML document and the link document. For example, in this case, we're trying to get a style sheet, which is coming from the CSS file. Also, we have the type attribute here, which is basically saying what type of data should be between, by input between this file and the other file, which is CSS in this case. Okay, so the type of data is CSS. And finally, we have the edge reference, which is just trying to get the file, like pointing to a specific file and that you want to use. For example, in this case, we are using a style.css. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click save, and I will run my file again. In this case, I just gonna go ahead and refresh the page, and of course, it went back to black just because we have no CSS rule. We don't even have the file yet, so let me go ahead and create the file. So how do you create the CSS file? Just go to File, click Save, not Save, sorry, click New, New File, and let me just save the file by just click on File, click on Save, and let's call this file style.css. Keep in mind that you can just call it whatever you want to call it. That's not the point here. So just go ahead, click Save, and now I have my CSS style. So let's go ahead and just put the selector, which is H1, and then just give it a color as blue. Okay, so just remember this picture here. So the selector is basically the first part to create a declaration. Okay, so in this case, the selector here is the P, and then the property is the font size, and then the value is 1.2 EM. So let's go back in our case. So in our case, we have H1, which is our selector. Then we have color, which is the property. And then we have blue, which is the value. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click Save. And everything should be blue. Not everything, but at least every H1. Of course, the pig tag are not affected because I haven't said anything about it. So let's go ahead and type P and give it a color of red. Just click Save and refresh the page. And this is a pig tag, and this is another pig tag. And I'm just gonna go ahead and refresh the page, and now it's red. So as you can see, now we just can apply every little thing, every little tag, rule, CSS rule in this file. The good thing about, another good thing about using this type of file is that everything is organized. Because imagine if I have, probably H2, and I also have H3, and so on. And not only H2, H3, but I also have what other type of tag we have. I also have my IMG, which is for images, and imagine we have more declarations here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let me just put everything back, and I'm gonna add it here. So now look, this thing look like, and of course I need to add my style tag. And imagine if you have more CSS rule, this thing here will get bigger, big and big, right? So you don't want that. And because you don't want this, because another reason you don't want this is because if you want to change something in your code, then your file might be too long and you don't want that to happen. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this part here. Just gonna click save. And of course, everything I stay the same because I didn't remove the H1 and the P tag. What's the problem right now is, well, we don't have any problem yet, but one thing that is gonna happen a lot is that we're probably gonna get confused because now I'm introducing like 3 more words right now. Okay, so for example, remember that we say, we're talking about the tag, for example, HTML tag, and we have the link tag. We also have attributes, which is this one right here, but also we have selector, and we also have property, and we also have value, and so on. So all these things, everything I will be mentioning, like, okay, so now let's add this selector, and for this selector, let's add this property, and now let's add this value. So this might be a little bit confused at the beginning, but trust me, you get there. It's just like a matter of practice. Okay, so even though this one is really good, what we are doing right now, we have a separate page, we adding all these different things, and we still have one problem. Okay, so what about if I have 2 pig tag here, but I want this one blue and I want this one red. Okay, and I only have one here. Okay, so I cannot do this. I can say, hey, I want color to be red, and I want, want the pig tag to be red, and I want the pig tag to be blue. So I click save. Let's see what happens. And there you go. It becomes blue. But both of them become blue. All right. So what about if I go back and I want this one, which is the second P tag. Okay. This is the second one. This is the first one. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and type 1 and type 2. Okay. So right now, let me just go back. Right now, 1 and 2 are blue. So what about if I want only 1 to be blue and 2 to be red? Okay. Yes, you can come here and say, use the attribute style and just say color and say red, and and that one will become red. See that one? Because as you go, the inline style is like number 1 priority on the list. All right. Remember, we have an inline, internal, and external. Okay. So inline wins against external and internal, because here you are applying everything directly to the to this element here. Okay, but this is not a group practice, as you guys can see. Yes, if I go ahead also and I make this green, okay, but I want this become blue and the other one is red, okay. And again, it will stay blue and the other one will be red. Let me just make sure that it's blue because I see like a green, right? Okay, yeah, it's blue. I thought it was a green. I was like, okay, what did I do wrong? All right, anyway, let me just go back. And again, this one is blue, this one is red, but the external says green. Okay? So again, the inline wins against the external and internal. So how do we solve this problem of doing things not like this, not like every, and again guys, every time you think about a website, don't just think about this. Don't just think about you have one or two or three or four elements, okay? Think about a website like you have like something like this, you know, like pretty long, like you see these amounts of lines here. Think like you have like 3,000 lines of code, like 1,000 lines of code, like, you know, more than 500 lines of code. Don't just keep your mind that you're only creating one thing for just one specific thing. Like don't lock yourself on just one thing. Don't do things just because you are saying, okay, I just creating this website with my name and about me, and that's it. I'm just gonna go ahead and use Inline. Like, don't do that, because again, you never know what do you gonna do with this page later. Like, you have no idea. I still have been projects that I did it like 5 years ago, and I'm still going back to them, getting code from there, you know. So this is why it's always good even to write some comment. How you write comments, just like this, using the leg sign, then all together here, and then again this, and this is how you write a comment. You don't need to mix this together, but everything needs to be between these two things. Okay, this is how you start, this is how you end. This is also good to, you know, this is my bio or whatever you want to add, but also good like to add more comments as well, just in case. But again, let me just go back to what we were saying. And, you know, one way to just, you know, work out with, let me just remove this one here, with the what type of color do you want to add to each different paragraph here, in this case, the P element, is by using class. Okay. And then you create a class and you just give it a name of class. I don't know, my color, red, let's say. And then we're gonna talk about that class in the next lesson. Just giving you a heads up. But I will see you in the next lesson, and we're gonna start talking about class.